Hello, everyone, and welcome to our channel. I'm Mark.
And I'm Rob.
And today we're going to talk about the firing of Christie Sides. A long overdue firing, should I add. And hey, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so and hit the notification bell when you do so you get notified of our next video. So,
Mark, let me start this off, Mark, this time.
All right, go ahead, Rob.
I'm pretty sure someone here is quite ecstatic. I'll probably put that under and then very happy that this finally happened. And I know that one person who is, and that would be Mark.
So, Mark, I think every Fever fan is happy, Rob. I think we should throw a party.
I forgot to get the little, the little.
I was disappointed that when I envisioned Caitlin Clark's rookie year, I did not envision her having the worst coach of the 12 coaches in the league for X's and O's. 11th, second worst coach because Teresa Witherspoon was a disaster for other reasons. I did not envision that. A coach that would be holding her back, a coach that was clueless. I did not envision that in terms of affecting how she would play her rookie year. She overcame that, but her numbers and her performance would have been even better, especially in the beginning, if she had a real coach.
Right. I mean, we didn't see, they talk about not seeing this coming. I didn't do any research on sides or anything like that. Maybe we could have foretold the future, but we both didn't realize how horrible she was until the season and how frustrating it must have been for the fans.
Rob, let's go back and start how this began. Preseason. Now, we disagreed on this. Maybe you've changed your mind. But in preseason, they asked her a question about two-point shooting, and she said, yeah, we want to get her comfortable taking long twos, not mid-range twos, long twos. Everybody knows the no-no in basketball because it's not – the analytics say that's completely a bad shot. Okay, for obvious reasons. And then she said, well, after she passes it to the high post, we give her half a second to make a decision because she has a tendency to dance around, which I found derogatory when she said dance around. You're supposed to be making fun of someone in terms of what they're doing. And we've got people that can screen for her. All right. Let's analyze it. You don't have to have half a second. First of all, the other players on their team didn't know how to do a pick and roll. That's why she's hesitating. And second of all, half a second is ridiculous. And their team doesn't set good screens. So that's why it wasn't happening. But to put that in a preseason game in a question and put your rookie player down, it just was totally unnecessary, and it showed bad judgment. And she continued that throughout the whole year, where she didn't just put Caitlin Clark down. She put her whole team throwing all of them underneath the bus constantly and not taking responsibility for herself when the team didn't perform well.
Yeah, so our disagreement was whether she should have put that out there, or whether it was, she should have done that in the beginning of the season. And I kind of said it was okay, but like you said, during the season, but to continue that type of attitude and throwing not just her, but her own players under the bus, I kind of started to agree with you. Like, no, that's not right. You don't put that out in public like that. You don't do that.
I just think you were wrong about it because there was no benefit to it. But that's not why we're here today. We're here today to talk about Christie Sides being fired and why she got fired. So everybody kind of knows what she was incompetent at, and that's a lot of things. First of all, she couldn't do a basic thing they call a timeout.
I know, right?
She didn't know when to call a timeout. She called a timeout when they had momentum, but she didn't call a timeout when they scored 21 straight. All right. Okay. So that's obvious. That's one of the easiest things a coach can figure out how to do. And we've talked about this. All right.
And also, I'm sorry, excuse me. And then also when she called that time, some timeouts, what was the benefit of it? Or the timeout she called to set up a play near the end of the game, there was nothing there. So, yeah, the main point, like you said, is
point two, her plays at the end of the game were awful. Mm-hmm. Never found a way to get Caitlin Clark the ball. Even though Caitlin Clark made 2 game-winning shots when she was in college. Never got her the ball, didn't think she was a clutch player. She always said, well, the other team thinks they're going to, Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark can get the ball. So we'll give it to Leah Boston for a 3 instead.
Right.
All the other teams in NBA and WNBA history figured out how to give their best player a shot at the end of the game for good reason.
Mark, when I coach basketball and I have my best player, the other players knew, and the other coaches knew. The people in the stands knew who was going to get the ball at the end of the game. I'm not going to give it to my small little point guard who can barely hit the rim when he shoots it. I'm giving it to my best player, no matter what. I'm going to have a play design where some kind of screen's coming off, and they're going to at least get the ball and get a chance to win the game. And
here's the thing, Rob, is she is inflexible is the impression I got. Like, remember in Hoosiers when they're setting up the winning shot, and Gene Hackman said, no, we'll give it to this guy because everybody thinks the star player is going to get the shot. And the guy looks at him and said, I'll hit it, coach.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, okay. So Gene Hackman had an idea. He goes, okay, he's flexible. All right. You said you hit it. It's your ball. Guess what? He hits the shot.
Do. Okay. That's what you do. I mean, that's what I would have done if my player would have said, coach, let me take the last. And that's what I did. I won a game that way. I won 2 games that way. Well, I didn't have them say it, but I knew it. I won 2 games that way, a championship that way. My best player shot the 3-pointer.
We talked about this before. Michael Jordan hits the game-winning shot in Game 5, which is a deciding game against Cleveland. They asked Doug Collins, what was the play that you drew up? He said, give it to Michael and everybody else get the F out of the way. Okay? It doesn't have to be that, but just draw up a play for Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark to get the game-winning shot because those are your 2 star players. Okay? Those are your 2 players who could hit a 3-point shot. And just really, it looked like the worst possible play. Like if you drew up 10 plays, that looked like it was number 10 in terms of the best place you could draw up for the team. That's what it looked like every time. It was flabbergasting. All right, so that's number 2. Mm-hmm. That's not that hard. Rob can tell you as a coach, as a rookie coach, you probably figured out how to draw plays for things.
Yeah.
I was never a coach, but I told you the first time I was captain of the Ultimate Frisbee team, I thought calling timeouts was the easiest thing I had to do as the captain.
Right.
Coaches. Just from playing sports, I could feel momentum, and that's it. So she's clueless. That's why I decided. Throwing her players underneath the bus, we talked about. That's reason number 3. Mm-hmm. Number 4 is she couldn't figure out how to use Caitlin Clark properly. From the beginning, it was obvious she didn't have to have played with Caitlin Clark. There is game film of 4 years of Caitlin Clark running the highest scoring offense in the NCAA women's basketball. Okay, so you could talk to Lisa Bluter, you could talk to Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark knew how she run the offense. That was easy. No, she wanted to do dinosaur ball, which was not conducive to Caitlin Clark's talents and skills. And she wanted to give the ball 50 times in the paint to Leah Boston, who doesn't even have good post moves and travels a lot when she gets the ball.
Can't catch the ball and hold on to it.
Right, and neither does Alyssa Smith. Alyssa Smith doesn't have good post. She has a spin move and not much else. Okay, so that was not a good idea. Go ahead.
But you're right, Mark. I mean, if I'm the coach and I got the best player coming out of college, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to look at the film. And I'm going to watch some of the games like, what are the good points I can help? Oh, she gets the ball, passes it. Oh, she pushes the ball up the court. Hey, that's a good idea. Why don't I have an offense like that instead of, let's see, I'll just pound the ball. Our thing is to pound the ball inside to give it. No, you get the ball and go. I've always liked that. I mean, you don't have. They're not like. Even in the pro games, the post is not really the main thing now. It's getting the ball and pushing the ball up the court and beating the other team down the court.
Right. And Rob, it was obvious that they weren't good at the pick and roll. And they had this, I mean, she was coached the year before this and with a lot of the same players. And they didn't learn to pick and roll the year before. So it's obvious that something's going on here, that she doesn't know how to teach a pick and roll. They didn't have good screens and picks for players, Rob. Their offense mobility, like their motion and stuff was awful. If you watch the WNBA finals, and I only watched the fourth quarters of the games, you can immediately see the flow going on their offense and how much movement there was that didn't exist in the Fever.
Well, every other team that they played, you can see the difference in their offense, the way it flowed. Every team that they played at least had some type of motion offense. And she was complaining how, I mean, like you said, how Caitlin Clark was standing around on the outside, which she was. I was complaining about that too. But then on the other hand, it's like, well, if you're not going to design a play for her, like to stand out there in the corner, why, that's part of your fault as a coach. You got to set a back screen, set a away screen from her in the corner coming across for a shot, a down screen. So many things you could do to get her open and get the flow of the game going. But no, she didn't do that.
All right, now we'll get to defense, which Rob's favorite topic. Okay, so they were the worst defensive team in the league in the beginning of the year, and I think they moved up to like second last. And
Yeah.
against 3-point shooting, I think percentage-wise, they were last in the league, which would drive Rob and I crazy and everybody else because they weren't on their persons by the 3-point line. They thought they could close in, from halfway in between the post and the 3-point line, and that would be good enough. No, it's not good enough. You're too far away. Players practice shooting over people's hands that are going up, right, Rob? You do that.
Right. They actually have a little thing that they use to have that,
But if you're right on them, you can jump up because you're not leaning forward anymore and just reading your hand. If you can go straight up, now they got to throw even higher, and it throws off the arc of their shot. And it's harder because you're more in your face. It blocks their eye view also. So if you're right on them, the 3-point shot is much harder than if you close in on them.
Well, like I said, defense is talking too. So the we pointed out the players who maybe scored like 10 points against other teams, when they played the Fever, they dropped like 30 or 40 points on them because of that reason, because of their defense. And the main thing with defense, especially with the threes, is closeout. Like you said, if you're off your person and then the ball's reversed quickly, and then you're in the key and you're in the key in the 3-point line. I don't care how fast you are, and plus you can't jump that. They can't jump that high to even block the shot. That's
and Rob, this was and this wasn't one player. This was everybody but Lexi Hall. Wasn't that was a small forward or guard that wasn't there in time or wasn't right up on their person by the 3-point line, including Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Kelsey Mitchell's fast, but that's still you got to be there anyways. And Erica Wheeler and Wallace, they weren't there, and that's why their 3-point defense sucked. And it's on the coach, Rob. She has to keep harping that. She has to have them do that in practice, because if you do it in practice, you're going to do it in the game because you're just not going to fall back.
That's why you have practice. You practice guarding the 3-point line. You extend your defense out there. You force them to drive. If they're hitting threes, you force them to drive the ball to the basket because, like we said, not many of the players are really that good off the dribble. But even then, you have a help defense. So you play the team's going to shoot 3-pointers, force them to drive, and you get help and have that person pass the ball. Like I said, there's so many. The help and recover drill is a basic drill I've learned since I've been 10 years old. Help and recover, help recover.
Right, and I would understand if they were doing it because they were double teaming a great player in the post, but they weren't even double teaming doing that. Rarely were they doing that. Right. And if they were for a great player, fine, then you live with the 3-point shot in that particular case. But that was rare, Rob.
Yeah.
Just it was bad defense. So their offense was bad. Their defense was bad. And their offense should have been good if she had just given Caitlin Clark the ball in game one and quit trying to slow it down and kind of go in the post when that's not their strength.
And you saw that, like you said, some of the games I didn't see, but you saw some of the games when they actually started moving on their offense, doing backdoor cuts and motion with the ball, that they played a great game. They were in the game.
Right. And Rob, they came out of the second half and played the third quarter. They always got outscored in the third quarter, like 90% of the time, 95%. That means she makes bad in-game adjustments and doesn't know what she's doing. Really, that's what it means. I mean, constantly that was happening in the game. They did that. They would always blow leads too. I mean, I guess. I mean, the list is so long of the things that we could go on about that. So let's talk about whether or not this was fair. Okay, let's talk about whether this was fair or not, Rob, because I think we've got all the major points out of the way. Yeah. Okay, they had 6 wins 2 years ago. They picked up Aaliyah Boston, who most people know made All-Star team and Rookie of the Year the first year. So of course they're going to get more wins. But yeah, you give her credit for getting from 6 to 13, and you give her some credit from going to 13 to 20. But they picked up who's probably one of the top 3 rookies in the history of the WNBA, added to the team. And they won 20 games, but I maintain they could have won 6 more games at least, because they lost a lot of close games that they didn't close well, and they were poorly coached on offense and defense, and they blew leads, and they couldn't close out games because of the coach. So yeah, they got to 20 games, but they should have got to 25 or 26, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, easily they could have with a not even like a great coach, but with a decent coach that knew just the basics that we just pointed out: when to call a timeout, how to run an offense, how to do an out-of-bounds play, how to set up a defense. But just 4 basic things that any coach could have done if they were a decent coach, which she was not.
Right. And guess what? They won despite her, in my opinion. When they started playing better after the break, it's because she gave the ball to Caitlin Clark more and let them run a more up-tempo, fast-paced offense that is difficult to deal with at any level, even in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened is they played better because of that. In fact, Rob, she used to try to micromanage the game all the time from the sidelines. You could see her all the time. When she pulled back and stopped doing that, they started playing better. So that's why I'm saying it was despite her.
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely. And you could tell Caitlin Clark was like looking over like, and she'd call a play and Caitlin Clark would be like, no, screw this. We're going to do this. Forget you. We're going to do this. This is what works, coach. She was the coach on the floor. And, you can see even after like maybe there was a timeout and she'd walk over and first person she'd come over and talk to would be Caitlin Clark, So, yeah, the team got better and won more games. But it's obvious she is not a good enough coach to lead him to a championship, which I knew that the president could see right away because you could see she was outcoached practically every game. As you get further in the playoffs, you come against better coaches because the better coaches are the ones that are successful in the playoffs. So She was going to get outcoached more and more as the playoffs went along if they were able to get that far despite her. And I think they could see that. If she went up against Cheryl Reeve and the talent was equal, guess who was going to win the series? Cheryl Reeve's team, because she was going to get outcoached against Christie Sides, probably badly. And so they could see that. They could see that because they don't have more talent than the other teams right now. Now they might if they pick up free agents. Well, that's what they did. But that's what they did. I mean, when they played her, you saw that she knew that they wanted a fast break. And what did she do? They didn't. The team didn't get any rarely got any offensive rebounds. As soon as the shot went up and we missed it, they sprinted back because they knew that Caitlin Clark's going to get the ball and push it up, and that's what. And they knew that. Well, they have no half-court offense, so I'd rather take my chance with them trying to score with some of their made-up half-court offense, which they didn't do, than crash the boards.
Right, and so she was in over her head, and that was the bottom line. And Rob, and I don't know exactly what was going through her head, but she seemed very insecure from the very beginning, and that's why I think she put down Caitlin Clark. And why she wanted so much control and wanted everything to do her way instead of being flexible, because she seemed to want the credit for the success of the team, even though it was irrelevant. There was enough credit for everyone if they were successful, Rob. So I maintain that was part of the problem with her mentality. And I think that was her. I think she just had poor judgment and common sense and intelligence in times, because
she didn't know how to deal with a player like Clark. She didn't know what to do with the superstar she had. And you're right. And it goes to show what the insecurities about dealing with her. You could totally see that.
You could see the look on the players' faces when they come out of a timeout. You could tell that they didn't like getting thrown underneath the bus. You could tell that hurts team chemistry. Now, she got team chemistry going after the Olympic break. She did those little games and everything. Give her credit for that. But you can't have a coach who's not competent enough to lead someone to a title and keep them when you have a Ferrari like Caitlin Clark and a talented team that's capable of getting a championship if they add a solid free agent like Satu Sabalia. And that's what they want to do. In fact, that's exactly why you had to fire this coach, Rob, because you are not going to get free agents when you got an incompetent coach. I don't want to play for her.
Right. I wouldn't play.
If I was Satu Sabalia, I don't want to play for her. This is like worst coach in the league. I don't want to be held back and be frustrated all the time by a coach that doesn't know what she's doing. Give me a real coach and I'll sign with you. That's what I would say if I was Satu Sabalia.
Yeah, and plus what you said. I'm sorry. And plus what you said. The main thing, she never had the players back. How many technical fouls? 2. She's got her players lying on the ground, poked in the eye, and you're not on the court. Player gets knocked down on the floor. Nothing. Player had horrible calls against obviously a horrible missed call on a 3-point shot. It should have been a flagrant foul. You don't get up in a referee's face. So as a player, you're like, well, shoot. She doesn't really care about us.
Let's review what happened, Rob. She never got a technical. Caitlin Clark gets her second technical, was kind of an iffy technical. And she said, that's my job to get in the ref's face and challenge the fact that Caitlin Clark's not getting calls, not her. She shouldn't say anything. And everyone goes, well, you never do that and you never get technical. So the next game she gets a technical. All right, she just did that because everybody said you never get a technical. Okay, then she never got a technical again the rest of the year, I think, until the playoffs. It's
Right.
like, why didn't you do it again? You don't have to get a technical every game, but you need to get in their face more because Caitlin Clark was getting screwed over big time by the refs, both not getting calls and then getting ticky-tack foul calls on her. Whether you accept it or not, that's what happened. Caitlin Clark and the Fever were getting screwed over. Go watch the Aces game where Asia Wilson didn't commit any fouls supposedly, and Leah Boston had 6 fouls just by blinking her eyes because the refs were favoring the team. And you've got to get on the refs' case when that's happening, Rob.
As a coach, like I said, I mean, I didn't really get that many technical fouls, and it's weird. The technical fouls I did get, all I said was like that was a foul, and then they gave me a T. I'm like, okay, I didn't swear or jump in their face, but I mean, during the game, if my team is getting hammered, I definitely stand there like, hey, what's up? What are you calling that? Why are you calling it for them and not on us and not on them? What's up with that? You definitely got to get on the coach, the referees. They're just going to be like, oh, well. I mean, they were the worst refs ever in the whole any kind of league. But so why not even like, well, what's there to lose and get in their faces? What are you losing? You saw the other coaches. They did it. Nothing happened to them. There was no T on Hammond when she went off on him.
Now they were the worst. They were biased against Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, because they didn't want Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark to have any success. And you know what? Guess what? You're up against that next year. But guess what? You need to get in their ear more. And she wasn't willing to do that. Yeah. So then you're not, Rob, you heard the Peter principle. You get to the level, you get to a certain level, and that's the highest level that you can go before you. She wasn't qualified to be a head coach at this level. Maybe a head coach at the high school level, maybe assistant coach in the WNBA. She wasn't qualified. She wasn't competent enough. It was beyond her. She was in over her head. That's all there was to it. It was obvious from the very beginning to a lot of people. To me, she should have been fired right after the Olympic break. Right? That's
that's what we were hoping. That's what we were talking about. I was more optimistic about that, but then I was like, I said once they went past the Olympic break, that's why I was. And you were correct. Like you said, you were 70-30. I was 37. That they wouldn't pull the trigger, but I'm glad they did because they needed to. They really needed to pull that trigger ahead of time. But I thought they would let it seep into the season. But I'm glad they made that move. It was a great move.
Well, I'm not sure why the other president resigned. I'm not sure if she was forced out or not. But when the new president came in and got rid of Lynn Dunn as the GM right away, I said, okay, there's a really good chance Christie Sides is going to be fired. Now, she said positive things about Christie Sides, how she handled the adversity in the beginning and how they went for more wins and they finally made the playoffs. But then she said she's a really nice person. As soon as she said that, I go, that's what you say when you break up with someone that's a really nice person. So I said, okay, she's going to get fired. And I said that like I wasn't 100% sure because I didn't understand why she didn't fire when she fired the GM, because that's what I would have done. That's what teams a lot of times do. They fire the GM and the coach at the same time when they come in. So it was a little confusing there. And then you get the Stephanie White situation where you hear rumors about Stephanie White, but I don't know if they interviewed Stephanie White or not. People criticized them. They said that was a circus show to interview and talk to Stephanie White about coaching at the Fever. How do you know that? I don't know if that happened or not. Did someone see Stephanie White in their office? I don't know if that happened or not. So I'm not going to criticize them for that because I don't know if it's true or not. But I do agree it's not right to do that when you still have a coach. Just fire the coach and then go talk to Stephanie White. You know you're going to get a good coach. Right. You got a prime team spot with Caitlin Clark. It's a prime coaching job. You're going to get a coaching job.
Well, it's you got Caitlin Clark because you got a young team, and you got a young team. If you see if they have proper coaching, that they could go far. They made the playoffs despite, like we said, sides. Just think, like we said, if you had a fairly decent coach, how far they could go.
Yeah, I do not agree with the theory that they were waiting to see if they could get a good coach. They could get a good coach because I think they have the number one WNBA team to coach. Right. So, yeah, there's lots of good coaches out there, even ex-NBA coaches. And we'll talk about who will coach them in another video. That's what happened. And when I saw that, and I then said them supposedly talking to Stephanie White, and that she wasn't totally happy where she was. And she, by the way, she used to play for them. She played 5 seasons with them. She was assistant coach 4 years. One of the year they won a championship. I don't know how much credit you give the assistant coach. But then she also head coach 2 years, and I think she got him to the finals. So she had some success there as a coach, and she's had success in the WNBA last year. What did she made I guess they made the semifinals, right? They lost a 5-game series. So she's already had success with the Connecticut Sun. And that wasn't an easy team to coach, Rob.
No.
We got players like Eugene and Carrington on the team. Okay. Yeah. So anyways, that's my take, and I'm sticking to it. So I can tell you, Rob, that we do live shows for this. And I can tell you that everybody in the comments, when they start blowing leads, they just start like not scoring for, I don't know, 6 straight points because their half court offense sucked. It was very frustrating. People said, "Oh, I got to go have a beer, or I'll come back later. I can't watch."
Yeah,
this.
or the first comment was fire Sides. She needs to be fired.
Right.
You got to fire her. Get rid of her. She's horrible. Fire Sides. Fire. I mean, that was all the comments. Just fire Sides.
Rob, some of the super Caitlin Clark fans, we call them the Clarksies, wanted her fired after she criticized Caitlin Clark in the preseason, which again is wrong. But you don't fire her for that. You fire her when you figure out that she doesn't know what she's doing on the court, which of course. But that was a sign. That was a sign that she didn't have their players back, and she was willing to criticize the players too easily. And I think that was a bad start. She started bad from the beginning, where she just wanted to play this dinosaur ball, which was a bad idea. And in fact, if you, we don't know for sure, but I think the future of the WNBA is going to be more and more of this type of offense as you see the guards coming out of college and less of this dinosaur physicality ball. Of course, for that to happen, the refs have to call the game tighter, and that comes from the commissioner and the head ref. And
right. They got changed the brutal ball that they wanted, the physical ball they say they pride themselves in, which is really stupid.
If they do start calling it tighter, it will open up things for the guards to shine, which will make it more exciting. Anyways, so that's what happened. I think a lot of things are going to be better. Caitlin Clark's numbers and play is going to be better. She's going to be more comfortable. She's not going to hesitate on whether or not she should take a 3 or not, whether she's supposed to take a long 2, which is stupid, or whatever. Or, someone's going to teach them how to play better defense, motion offense, do the pick and roll better, all sorts of things. And that's on Caitlin Clark too, to be a better defensive player next year. And yeah, she told her to like bend her knees, but she didn't really stress it enough because Caitlin Clark did not fix her bad habits on defense, and the new coach hopefully will. So Caitlin Clark can become a better defender.
Right.
And so anyways, we're going to talk about who's going to be the coach and whether or not and everything, and a couple other topics on separate videos, because that's our videos this is longer than I thought it was going to be. But we needed to go over and indicate why she got fired, even though she had some success. And I think they did the right thing. And I think it was a no-brainer. In fact, Rob, let me just give you the quote here. And this is why she got fired. And it backs up what we just said. This is the quote from the president, Kelly Kroskoff. "We are incredibly thankful to Coach Sides for embracing the challenge of leading us through integral transition period over the last 2 seasons, while also positioning us well for future growth. While decisions like these are never easy, it is also imperative that we remain bold and assertive in the pursuit of our goals, which includes maximizing our talent and bringing another WNBA championship back to Indiana." Rob, that screams that this coach did not know how to handle Caitlin Clark and did not treat her and play her correctly and coach the team properly to maximize Caitlin Clark's talent. Those 3 words tells you exactly why she got fired.
Yep, exactly.
And that's what they're going to do. They're going to find a coach that can maximize Caitlin Clark's talent because she's a once-in-a-generation player, and that's why you needed a new coach.
Right, exactly.
Let us know what you think down below. I think all Caitlin Clark fans are going to agree with pretty much everything we said, but let us know what you think down below anyways. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so. Hit the notification bell when you do so you get notified of our next video. And join us for our live show. We will talk about this, obviously, tonight, 6 to 8 Eastern time, every Monday except for major holidays. And if you want to donate to this channel, there's super chats and super thanks down below. And there's also a link to PayPal. And we'll see you in the next video.
Sides out.